Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita Kareer, the show that deep dives into the biggest story of the day. And tonight, on the show, we put our focus on External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit to China. In fact, Dr. S. Jaishankar today said that India and China relations are gradually moving in a positive direction, delivering opening remarks during a meeting with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Beijing. Dr. Jaishankar said that both countries have made good progress in the past 9 months towards normalizing bilateral ties. He also underlined that this progress is the result of resolving friction along the border and the ability to maintain peace and tranquility there. Dr. Jaishankar also emphasized that this forms the fundamental basis for mutual strategic trust and the smooth development of bilateral ties. He also added that it is now incumbent upon both sides to address other aspects that are related to the border, and that includes de-escalation. Now, remember, Dr. Jaishankar also mentioned that this year marks the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries, and also appreciated the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, the fact that it has resumed after a gap of 5 years. He thanked the Chinese side for their cooperation on this matter. In fact, a similar readout has also been issued by the Chinese Foreign Affairs Ministry, wherein they have quoted categorically that there are global trade disruptions that are happening. Of course, the Chinese Foreign Ministry was alluding to the United States tariff disruptions. They've also called it once again bullying. So in all of these developments that are currently happening in the context of the larger geopolitical arena, the question we are asking tonight on the show is, can India-China tango can that be a reality, or is it a fallacy? In fact, to answer those and some other questions related to this big story on ET Now, we're now joined by Manoj Joshi, who's a distinguished fellow at ORF. Thank you very much, Mr. Joshi, for joining us here on ET Now. First things first, let me ask you, there have been several meetings that have happened between the Chinese side and the Indian side in the past few months. Is this really more about just optics, or will China finally walk the talk?
Well, as you referred to the External Affairs Minister's statement today, it is a very cautious statement. So what he said was that, our relationship, our bilateral relationship requires that we take a far-seeing approach, meaning I'm quoting him directly, far-seeing approach to our ties, So they said that some decisions were taken when our leaders had met at Kazan, meaning Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping had met at Kazan. As you pointed out, he referred to the progress made in the last 9 months. But he said, again, this was because we had been able to deal with the friction on our line of actual control. But the interesting thing is that last month when our defense minister, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh was in Beijing, he actually was more bold, and he said that we need to settle our border dispute, meaning not just the LAC, but a permanent settlement of the Sino-Indian border. We should take steps towards that. So what I'm trying to say is that there is an element of caution there, but India is definitely interested in restoring normality in ties. It thinks that ties with China are important not only for bilateral reasons, but as Dr. Jaishankar pointed out in Beijing, that these will benefit the world as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Joshi. In fact, if I were to refer to the Indian handout, that's a readout that's been given that essentially states that, as neighboring nations and as major economies in the world, there are various facets and dimensions of our ties. And of course, it's essential in that context that restrictive trade measures and roadblocks are avoided. And Dr. S. Jaishankar hoped to discuss these issues in further details with China. So when it comes to these restrictive trade practices, or what the readout calls as roadblocks with respect to Chinese, curbs on exports of rare earths, or it is specialty fertilizers, or whether it is the issue of labor, Chinese labor being recalled, do you think China can really look at those issues that India currently has? Because it's not really happened before that India has stated in very categorical terms about these trade issues, about these restrictive trade measures and roadblocks that have happened between India and China in the past few months.
Well, there is an enormous amount of turbulence in global trade. And right now, and turbulence created by the United States. Right now, the US and China are themselves, they have a framework agreement, but they don't have a final agreement. And so the Chinese know no matter what happens, even in that final framework agreement, they will have to face pretty high tariffs, anywhere between 30 to 50%. Now, given the kind of tariff challenges that they are facing with the United States, given the effort that the United States, I think politically is making to decouple from China, no matter what the United States says, eventually it is trying to contain China and decouple from China. The Chinese need all the friends in the world. And a huge economy like India, a growing economy like India, is something they would like to cultivate. But then they are taken up, by a contradictory trend where they would like to restrict India's growth. All the recent decisions they have taken to restrict certain kinds of labor coming out to India, certain kinds of technology coming out to India. They have not been providing us engineering support for some of their own products that the Indian companies have purchased. So the Chinese, at one level, they want better ties with India. They want to invest in India. But at the other level, they are worried that India might grow at such a pace that it becomes a kind of a competitor to China. So this is the challenge that they face. And right now, with the US pressure on them, I think they will be more amenable to taking action on those non-tariff areas which they impose on us.
Our bilateral relationship requires that we take a far-seeing approach to our ties. Since our leaders' meeting in Kazan in October 2024, the India-China relationship has been gradually moving in a positive direction. Our responsibility is to maintain that momentum. In recent times, as you have noted, Excellency, the two of us have had several opportunities to meet at international events and carry out strategic communication. It is our expectation that this will now be regular and take place in each other's countries. We are marking the 75th year of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. We appreciate that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has also resumed after a gap of 5 years. I thank the Chinese side for the cooperation on this matter. Excellency, we have made good progress in the past 9 months for the normalization of our bilateral relations. It is the result of the resolution of friction along the border and our ability to maintain peace and tranquility there. This is the fundamental basis of our mutual strategic trust and for smooth development of bilateral relations. It is now incumbent on us to address other aspects related to the border, including de-escalation. Neighboring nations and major economies in the world today, there are various facets and dimensions of our ties. Measures towards normalizing our people-to-people exchanges can certainly foster mutually beneficial cooperation. It is also essential in this context that restrictive trade measures and roadblocks are avoided. I hope to discuss these issues with you in further detail.
All right, so that's External Affairs Dr. S. Jaishankar speaking on the ties between India and China. And thank you very much for your patience, Mr. Joshi. So let's talk about the economic aspects that you said that China wants to contain India. So far, economic aspects have been kept in conjunction with border matters as well. But how do you really see ties between India and China evolve from here on? Do you see economic and trade angles perhaps will be kept separately from political matters?
No, I don't think so. I think the 2020 developments in Eastern Ladakh are a kind of watershed. We had built up from 1993 to roughly 2020, we had built up a climate of trust with China. And, our trade had been steadily increasing with China. Our trade is still increasing, but the point is that 2020 destroyed that trust. that trust was based on several agreements relating to the border and how to maintain peace and tranquility there. But the Chinese cast aside those agreements, and the manner in which they acted in eastern Ladakh by trying to blockade us, by trying to mass troops out there, I think that, as I said, that trust was destroyed. And it's very easy to destroy something like trust, but it's much, much more difficult to try to reconstruct it. So right now, what we are seeing is a process of trying to reconstruct it. And in this process is being carried out in a period where we are still, we have good economic relations, we have sound economic relations, our trade continues to grow, but there are many restrictions that India placed after the 2020 events, restrictions on investment, restriction on Chinese apps operating in India. So many restrictions were placed. All that will take considerable time to come back to normal. So I think, as I said, that's why I said that what Dr. Jaishankar said, that, the normalization of our bilateral relations, is the result of resolution of friction along the border and our ability to maintain peace and tranquility there. Now, that's the question of Chinese motive with regard to what they did on the border. We still have no answer why they did what they did. Now, unless we have some answer, we will not be able to really overcome that fully. So right now, as I said, we are in that phase where we trust but verify. So we are trying to build up trust, but we'll verify it at every step. And to,
right,
as I said, to restore normality is much, much more difficult.
Okay. To restore normalcy in ties is going to be a difficult road ahead for both the sides, sir. But how do you really define the current status of ties between the two sides? Of course, there is the issue of United States, of course, looking at India as a good trading partner. Donald Trump is also talking in a positive manner when he talks about a trade deal with India. There is eagerness on the side of the US administration to increase its bilateral trade with India. And then you have China, on the other hand, which is essentially in some sort of a trade war with the United States, even though a short period truce could have come about between both the sides. How do you really see this new, sort of a new set of ties between India and China, new trajectory of ties between India and China?
You see, the ties between India and China are on the same basis. There is conflict between us, there is cooperation between us, and there is competition between us. And I think these three factors will continue to prevail at various levels. So, as I said, 2020, the conflict factor went up. Right now, we are in the cooperation factor. See, and now the point will come is this cooperation factor comes along with the competition factor. So, conflict, competition, cooperation. So, all these factors are important, and they play a role at varying levels at different points in time. So right now, as I said, we are trying cooperation and we are talking to them. We are saying nice things. Our people are, as I said, our Raksha Mantri visited last month. EAM is there right now. Last October, the two Prime Minister and President met each other after a long time. So as I said, there is this three C's remain a constant, but as I said, at varying levels of emphasis at different points in time.
Right, sir. And definitely remains to be seen whether this meeting is just about optics or will China actually walk the talk? Will China actually agree to lifting some of those curbs which have impacted industries globally? And of course, that includes India as well. And of course, remains to be seen how the meetings at the SCO go. Thank you very much on that note, Mr. Joshi, for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us on this crucial story. Ladies